Welcome back to Team Tabletop. Today, we're going to be talking about the brand new Venture into the Dungeon mechanic in Magic the Gathering, which was just unveiled to us a few hours ago. And I just want to say a couple of things on it, exactly how we can use it and how we can abuse it. The first thing that you should know about the Venture into the Dungeon mechanic, it doesn't go into your deck. It's not inside your sideboard, but you can keep it next to your sideboard. And it's very peculiar, the wording that he said inside the video, which is that when you play the dungeon, it goes into your command zone, which I'm not too sure how that works inside EDH. The reason why I think it's not inside the sideboard is because there's no sideboarding inside Commander, so they're trying to find a way to circumvent it. I'm not too sure what they're going to call this new mysterious zone is. So how exactly does the venturing mechanic actually work? You play a card that says venture into the dungeon. If you haven't picked a dungeon yet, you can pick one from any of the ones you currently have outside the game, and then you can venture into the first level of that. However, after that, if you venture into the dungeon again, you must progress down this dungeon until you're finished. And once you're done this dungeon, you are able to travel again to the same dungeon, or you travel to one of the newer ones. A few things about this. Every time you move through the dungeon, you are able to activate a certain effect of that dungeon, and you progressively go downwards. There are notably some dungeons that are shorter than other ones, and there are some longer ones that are you do a lot more. Basically, the one that we have here is the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. You go to the very end, you can draw 3 cards, reveal them, and you may play one of them without paying their mana cost, which is pretty neat. However, it costs you 6 or 7 ventures into the dungeon, 7 in total, I believe. So the issue with this is that you have to play 7 creatures that venture into the dungeon, or you have to blink it. This is where I think the dungeon mechanic is going to thrive. If you're able to blink your venture into the mechanics or the venture into the dungeon, you'll be able to get through it much faster. My guess is the cards that will have something like create a treasure and then venture into the dungeon, it's going to have extremely strong blink effects, which would be pretty neat. These things are going to be really good inside these kind of blink decks inside the standard meta. I think Yorion is going to be great. Tassa is another card that I think will be abusing all this, because by venturing in, you're going to get different amounts of value. There's another thing I want to talk to you guys about, which is when you're finished a dungeon, then some of the cards get a power up depending on if you already finished a dungeon beforehand. You do not have to finish the dungeon with that particular card. Once you get the blessing of the dungeon, as what I like to call it, if you guys can remember, blessing of the city or whatever it's called, you'll be able to have strong effects on these cards that you just play straight out. The thing about that one is that there's 2 different ways of playing this. You can play it for more value, which is you keep blinking it and do something like the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, get a free trigger every single time, or you can finish the dungeon as fast as possible, and then you get all these benefits of the dungeon as soon as possible. So there's 2 ways of playing this. As you guys can see here, the 3 that are available are the Tomb of the Annihilation, the Lost Mine of Padalir, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Lost Mines of Pedalver, I think, is more of a red deck kind of dungeon, if you guys can even say that, mainly because of the Dragon Lair, giving you a 1/1, and then giving you a counter, and then drawing you a card. That's the kind of value that you're kind of missing inside mono red. Now, if you guys can see here on the bottom left-hand corner of these cards, it says 20, 21, and 22. So I'm not too sure why there's no kind of backslash here to indicate how many it is. Probably just for the video itself, so that they don't spoil exactly how many of these dungeons are there. Well, I can safely say that there's at least 22 of these currently. Otherwise, unless they take up their own little slot here, but I don't think that's the case, because normal cards have the little backslash to indicate what card it is. These, I feel, will probably be where the tokens are, or it's going to have its own little like a special slot like the Mystic Archives, and you get like a dungeon card each. I will predict that there is going to be a couple of things where you can only get a certain amount of dungeons inside your sideboard, or your sideboard that doesn't exist. Something I'm not too sure about though is how it actually triggers, if it's something that happens right away. It's kind of an effect, isn't it? I'm not too sure if Tell's End will affect this one will affect this. So if you can counter the effects of the dungeons with a Tell's End, because technically it's not a card on the board, it's just an effect that you get. But it is a triggered ability of a thing here, but these aren't artifacts or whatever it is. I'm not sure what kind of category they fall under. I would personally say that they will go under the category of triggered effects, but I'm not too sure, guys. It's very much anyone's guess here. All I can tell you guys now is that there's 22 of these. The most effective way of using these things is probably going to be blink decks, if you're able to get some sort of cheap venture into the dungeons, and then you can just Yorion it all out and then get some more value out of it. So yeah, that is our first look into the dungeon mechanic. I think it's a pretty cool thing in general. I like how it has reference to all the D&D things, and I like how they're bringing this over, because the D&D people are going to be coming over to the game. They're going to be like, oh, look at that. I'm just going to grab cards from my original game that I love. I think the collaborations is pretty neat. The expanded universe is okay. I don't really know how I feel about the whole, different TV series and whatnot, but I personally enjoy it as an individual, because I like seeing different IPs come over, and it attracts more customers or more players potentially, which is what we want. More customers is what Wizards want. But as a player, I'm not too sure how it is for the game, if it's going to be healthy long term, because they're going to be making strong cards that are probably not going to be printed again. I know Mark Rosewater has said that he'll be making the cards so that they will be able to make functional reprints, but as it stands, they still have yet to reprint the Walking Dead stuff, and that Rick guy. I'm not gonna lie, guys, that's a pretty freaking strong human tribal card. It's a pretty decent, but we'll see how it's like in the future. But if you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Please be sure to subscribe for more content like this. I'll give you more details as we learn more about the Adventure into Mechanics, along with some of the brand new cards that are released. But until next time, everyone, be sure to look after yourselves, and thanks for watching.